canvas tops were a challenge to me to begin with, but then I sort of figured out how to get it done. The canvas tops are nothing more than 3-ply, like Kleenex tissue, where I've used 2 out of 3 plies. 3 was too much because they tended to wrinkle up and you couldn't separate them, but at least you could do it with the 2. So you drape the material over what you want it to go on, and then just coat it with 50-50 water and white glue, and let it dry. When it dries, it's crisp, still flexible, and it tends to shrink just a little bit, which gives it a few wrinkles here and there. You'll notice this truck here, the paint's a little darker. This is Tamiya olive drab. These 2 were painted with the testers. I like the testers better. It turns out that the tissue dries a little bit lighter than the plastic does, so it makes it look like it's got a little bit of sun damage. The weathering was done much the same way with some powders, just to bring out the highlights of the top.
And all of it extreme scratch building.
Everything is scratch built. Yeah.
Which I know you love, scratch building and the research. I'm here at the Connecticut Street Rod Association with Charles Rowley, and he's a truck guy. Builds these awesome trucks. You always know they're his when you're looking at them all. You know, when you look at Charlie's work, especially on these guys, I'm noticing it more than maybe even on some of his fire engines, the fire equipment that we're used to looking at. His weathering, it's not that heavy weathering that, you know, it's mud and rust, and there's very subtle bits. And the light that hits it is very important. When you look at this compressor cover that's on it, it's in essence one shade of color. But when you look at it closely, the light catches the edges and you can see where it's worn. You get a sense of the people that have been involved with that, using the equipment along with the hoses, you know, the brass fittings. You get a feeling of it's once been bright brass. It's then aged a bit, but then it's been handled. So there's a shine on the higher ends, and you know where it's been handled the most because it's brighter. Seems obvious, but it's very subtle and it's beautiful.
I think it makes a difference. It's one of my pet peeves with model building is that sometimes you see the weathering to an extraordinary extent, where it looks like there are 2 or 3 inch mud balls that have been thrown at the piece, you know? And it's too bad. An otherwise beautifully done model could have been better. So my thing is, make it look like it's actually been in use, but don't make it look like it's been beat up and is a piece of junk. So ordinary wear, such as where the operator or the driver or the officer would get into the truck, or the places in the back where they would be more apt to handle things, where the paint would rub in time. Those are the kinds of things that I like to do.
Yeah, you can see on the step on this truck, you know where the feet have been. You know that as the driver's getting in and out, his feet are going to contact this area more than the back end and scuff off the paint. Right at that very edge, that gets a little more shine to it.
It's also on the handles on the GI gas can, and where you look at the levers where they operate the winches, those are touched a little bit with just enough of the weathering material to make it look like it's been handled.
It's a true sign of your work.
I started out doing these. I got a telephone call from a gentleman in Maui, Hawaii, who was looking for a model of a fire truck that he used as a firefighter during World War II. And I ended up building him a model of that fire truck, and along with that, he asked me to build a model of the fire trailer that they also used. So that's how this all started. I really was not into military modeling at all. I don't build tanks, I don't build airplanes to speak of. This particular model here is similar to the model that I built for him. The trailer is identical, but the truck is a little bit different in that the one that I built for him only had 4 wheels rather than 6. They were called a WC, a weapons carrier during World War II. This is built on a 1.5-ton chassis, whereas the one I built for him was a 3/4-ton Dodge. They used the same engine, same running gear, everything. It's just that this was 4.5 feet longer. And since I didn't really want to build another exact replica of what I built for him, I said, why don't I build the WC63? That's the tandem axle. So this is an offshoot of the one that I did for him. The Deuce and a half was the last one I did, and it was just sort of the culmination of trucks that I wanted to build of that World War II area. I didn't want to do a lot of them, but I did want to do this one. So I had the parts from the Chevrolet that I had done. The hood, the fenders were identical, tires and wheels were the same, so I had the basis for it. It was just a matter of doing the frame, working the cab a little bit different, building the body. All the tires and wheels are resin castings. The wheels on this one are 6-hole wheels, rather these others are 5s, which are not truly accurate. But I had someone actually do a 3-dimensionally printed wheel with 6 holes. I bought that, and then I made a mold, and I cast a bunch of tires for this, along with the new ones. So this is a little bit more accurate. This is also the long wheelbase version of what they called the Deuce and a half. They had one that was 142 inches. Then they had one which was 163 inches, and it was the more prevalent of the two. But this one is unique in that it has a fish plate and a series of bolts in the frame. During the latter part of the war, they actually built these so they could take them apart. So they were basically cut the frame off right there, put a dolly wheel on the back of the frame, and drove the front end of the truck up into a C-47 transport to carry it away to wherever they're going to take it. And they did the same for the back, because the body was cut right there, cut in 2 pieces. All the running gear and everything was put into the bed, compact in a bed, and they put those in the aircraft and flew them away.
I had no idea.
Wherever they wanted to use them, and of course they dropped into the airfield, in 2.5 hours they'd have this put back together again. So I decided a unique one would be to build it with that fish-plated frame. And it has a load in the back. These trucks, the ones with the red ball, were used during the latter part of the war. After the invasion of Normandy, General George Patton was making his dash through Belgium and France, and he was going so fast that the supplies couldn't keep up. So from September until the latter part of November, 24 hours a day, these trucks transported goods and materials to the GIs that were up on the front in Belgium and France. They used the wreckers for support, and they were guided in their route by generally an MP who rode a motorcycle, or they had a Jeep too. But primarily it was the Deuce and a half, and occasionally the Diamond T wrecker, the 4-ton wrecker. So that was sort of the interest in getting it all together, you know, and
that initiative with the red dot
was called the Red Ball Express, and this is an actual picture of a GI, the Red Ball Highway, and they all, to identify the trucks, they had a red ball on the grill.
Quite famous.
Yeah, they did that from September until November. There were other convoys as well, but this was probably the largest one. And ultimately they were able to follow up and get all of their equipment and everything off the shore, off the beach at Normandy, and get it dispersed to wherever it had to go.
What planning.
Yeah, but these trucks did the job. So there's a little bit of history as well as the fun of building the models involved in it. And there's a little hint of a fire department because it's got a red extinguisher.
Perfect. And in Elise, this truck won the Joe Cavorli Award.
They put it, it's the model that Joe would have liked the best.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.